The Galactic Council chamber stood as a marvel of ancient architecture and modern design, constructed by civilizations that had colonized stars while humans still walked barefoot. Every species present had earned their seat through millennia of conquest, diplomacy, or sheer survival. When Earth was invited to join, many saw it as a political experiment, perhaps a gesture of diversity, certainly not one of trust. Humanity, they believed, was still too young. And yet, here he was, Ambassador Kieran of Earth, the first human diplomat ever to speak in the council, stepped into the chamber. He wore no elaborate robes, no ceremonial armor, just a matte black suit that barely reflected the ambient starlight filtering through the translucent dome above. His gait was even deliberate. He didn't look left or right. He didn't bow. To many in the chamber, that was an insult. To others, it was a sign. A representative of the Vradari Confederacy muttered something in their native clicks and warbles, translated in real time. They didn't even send a warrior, just a speaker. A ripple of amusement spread among the more aggressive factions, those who'd built empires on forced compliance. Kieran stood at his designated spot, hands behind his back, expression unreadable. No translator device adorned him. He spoke Galactic Standard without aid. Earth appreciates the honor of joining this esteemed body, he said, voice calm, deep. We understand that with recognition comes responsibility. We're ready. Some scoffed. A representative from a Yulon alliance leaned forward. Are you? We've watched your species rise fast, disturbingly fast. War after war. Colonies. Expansion. And still, you pretend to seek peace. We don't pretend, Kieran replied. We understand peace is preserved through strength. The moment we forget that, we lose it. That answer earned silence, not approval, but assessment. Calculations began behind ancient eyes. As the meeting adjourned, private conversations ignited. Delegates retreated to their suites, each debating the same question. Was this human diplomat a figurehead, or something more dangerous? Kieran, meanwhile, walked alone to his quarters, refusing escort. He passed a group of younger aide from the Drelkathy Union who stared as he moved by. One of them muttered, "It bleeds red, just like the others." He didn't acknowledge it. Inside his suite, he sat at the table, opened a device, and reviewed council behavior logs, subtle nods, whispered words caught by hypersensitive sensors embedded in the walls. Patterns were forming. Alliances shifting. Not everyone wanted Earth to remain at the table. Some didn't want them at the table to begin with. He closed the file and sent a single encoded pulse back to Earth. A heartbeat, not an alert, just confirmation. Back in the chamber, the Council's security chief, a member of the ancient Crawl Order, met privately with several key diplomats. They spoke behind encrypted shields, voices carefully measured. The human must be tested, one said. Prodded, observed, or removed, said another. The Crawl chief shook his head. If they retaliate, we lose our pretext. We need something quiet, something deniable. A plan formed, not immediate assassination, but a carefully controlled pressure test. After all, if the humans were truly weak, they'd fold under discomfort. If not, the council needed to know what they were hiding. Back in his room, Kieran stared at the reflection in the glass. His heartbeat was steady, his eyes unblinking. He whispered to himself in Earth English, "They're going to try something." And he wasn't wrong. Kieran was summoned the next cycle under the pretense of a private arbitration with members of the Crawl Order and several allied species. No official protocol, no diplomatic oversight. He agreed without protest. His calm acceptance only unsettled them more. The chamber was different this time. Smaller, circular. No visible exits except the one he entered. The walls shimmered with latent energy. The air was unnaturally still. 7 council members sat in a semicircle. None of them smiled. "You understand why you're here?" the Crawl asked. "I understand you want clarity," Kieran replied. The Yulon, the representative, spoke next, voice sharp. "Earth expands too quickly. You acquire technologies not meant for you. We've seen your colonies. You mimic, reverse engineer, and weaponize without ethics." Kieran didn't blink. "Survival isn't unethical." "You don't ask permission," said another. You don't wait for consensus. We don't need to. That was the last answer they tolerated. Without warning, 2 charged rods struck him in the back, spinal suppression devices. His knees hit the floor, but he didn't cry out. No panic, no anger. He fell like a stone and remained still, breathing slow, eyes forward. They bound him with restraints used on apex predators, liquid titanium infused with neural inhibitors. His nervous system was targeted with invasive nanotech meant to extract pain without permanent damage. Every second was designed to test his tolerance. "Tell us what you are," one of them demanded. "Diplomat," Kieran replied, voice steady despite the invasive currents running through his spine. "Lies," the crawl growled. "You don't react. You don't resist. You were expecting this." "I was prepared." The pressure increased. His limbs twitched under the current, but his face remained still. Biological monitors embedded in the chamber began transmitting data. His vitals were abnormal. Heart rate below baseline. Cortisol suppressed. Pupils dilated in symmetrical response. "He's modded," one of them whispered. "He's not fully organic. No human baseline can take this. You think Earth would send anyone else?" Kieran said softly. The room paused. One of the younger aliens, unbriefed on the full plan, stepped closer and jabbed a probe into Kieran's neck. The device disintegrated on contact, melted as if the skin rejected it. A low hum filled the chamber. "What was that?" someone barked. "Retraction protocol," Kieran murmured. "What does that mean?" "It means this test is over." The restraints liquefied in seconds, draining off his body and vanishing into the floor. He rose slowly, joints creaking not from pain, but from release. He rolled his neck. The lights flickered. His suit shimmered, briefly, revealing layered segments of armor laced with reactive mesh. No one moved. None of them had ever seen someone undo crawl tech unaided. No weapons, no implants visible. Yet here he stood, calm, controlled, untouched. "You assaulted a diplomat under protected neutrality," Kieran said. "That's not a test. That's an act of war. You have no proof. I have recordings, biologs, and Earth's AI surveillance. Net hasn't stopped watching since I arrived. You just thought we were primitive." One of the aliens rushed forward, claws raised, primitive panic. Kieran didn't lift a finger. The attacker froze mid-motion, suspended mid-air, gasping, twitching. What is this?" "Suppression net," Kieran answered. "Microscale. Autonomous. Triggered the moment I registered critical vitals." "You said you were a diplomat." "I am." He stepped forward, unthreatening, composed. "But unlike you, we don't separate diplomacy and deterrence. Earth doesn't send words. We send balance." None of them responded. They didn't know how. Kieran walked to the chamber's edge. The door opened silently. No commands issued. No gestures made. It simply obeyed. He stopped just before exiting. "Consider this your only warning. Next time, Earth won't send me, and you'll wish they had." He left them in silence, their plan shattered not by force, but by control. The kind that comes from knowing the moment you're tested, you're already 10 steps ahead. Word of the incident spread through the council in hushed tones and encrypted channels. Officially, nothing happened. No statements. No reports. But every species with ears to the ground knew something had gone wrong, very wrong. And the silence from Earth in response was more terrifying than any broadcasted retaliation. Kieran remained within his quarters, not because he was confined, but because he chose to wait. The council had crossed a line. Now, they were watching him, unsure if retaliation was coming or if he was simply calculating the cost of vengeance. Neither option comforted them. What they didn't understand was that Kieran wasn't a standard envoy. He wasn't bred in halls of diplomacy or raised in colonial academies. He was trained under Project Aegis, Earth's covert diplomatic deterrence initiative. Created after humanity's first contact wars, Aegis operatives were designed to be more than messengers. They were peacekeepers by necessity and weapons by design. Kieran had been active in over 50 known interspecies encounters, most of which never made it into galactic records. His file, what little of it was accessible even to Earth's own government, described him as post-organic adaptive intelligence. His physiology blended enhanced human biology with quantum-based neural dampening, allowing full control over pain, fear, and emotional reaction. Every response was filtered, every word measured. To the outside world, he was quiet, neutral. To those who knew what to look for, he was a loaded weapon wrapped in civility. The assault chamber had triggered a passive data beacon embedded in his skull. Without his input, the entire event had been recorded in high-fidelity microtelemetry, including biometric scans of the attackers, energy signatures of the weapons used, and the exact moment the Council had violated interstellar diplomatic law. On Earth, that signal was received within 30 seconds. The Central Governance Council responded by activating Protocol Threshold 4. No broadcasts, no threats, just authorization. In orbit around the Council's starbase, 3 stealth-class dreadnoughts that had accompanied the ambassador under the guise of trade convoys powered up. They didn't decloak. They didn't issue warnings. They simply aligned their targeting arrays toward the structure's outer defenses and held. Inside the Council, the atmosphere was fracturing. Factions divided instantly. Some blamed the Crawl for their arrogance. Others pointed to Earth's restraint as a possible bluff. But none could ignore the facts. Kieran had walked into a trap, dismantled it without violence, and left unshaken. They knew no species could fake that level of composed retaliation. That wasn't anger. That was patience. And patience from a predator was never a good sign. Kieran was called back into the Council, this time in full assembly. No backrooms, no hidden agendas. As he stepped into the chamber, every eye followed him, every sensor tracking his vitals again. But there was no fear in him, just precision. A representative from the Elderly Collective spoke first, one of the few species known for their neutrality. Ambassador, there has been concern regarding yesterday's session. I'm sure, Kieran replied. There are allegations, the representative continued, that certain council members violated the Sovereign Envoy Accord. They did, Kieran said plainly. Do you have evidence? I do. He held up a small sphere. It lit up with silent projection, no sound, only visuals. The chamber, the restraints, the attack. Kieran's silence. The nano-defensive field disabling the attacker. Every angle, every face, every crime. No one could deny it. The elderly delegate didn't speak again. The silence was now theirs to manage. Kieran looked around the room slowly. We were invited here under the premise of mutual respect. Your actions spoke otherwise. You didn't just test humanity. You exposed your fear of it. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. Earth doesn't make threats. We make decisions. You won't get a second opportunity to make the same mistake. One of the Crawl opened their mouth to object, but stopped. Their own sensors were showing it. Earth's dreadnoughts had activated a silent lockdown, a digital chokehold on the station's outbound defense systems. No alarms, just power cuts one by one, clean and invisible. Kieran didn't smile. He simply ended the projection and walked away again. No one followed. The council fractured over the next few cycles. Debates erupted behind closed doors. Old alliances strained under the pressure of Earth silence. Some demanded sanctions. Others insisted on reparations. But none dared move against Kieran or speak publicly. Not after what they had seen. The images from the assault chamber were now archived in every high-clearance databank across the stars. The lesson had been received. Earth wasn't to be underestimated. They were to be understood or avoided. The dreadnoughts remained in silent orbit, never firing, never speaking. A constant shadow, each one capable of planetary siege. Their silence was more terrifying than threats. No declarations of war, no demands, just presence, unflinching. The message was simple. Any harm to one human representative would trigger consequences beyond diplomacy. Kieran filed no formal complaint, no charges. He didn't ask for a trial or vengeance. That unsettled the council more than any retaliation. They had anticipated rage. What they received was restraint sharpened into surgical deterrence. A predator who didn't need to roar because it already knew its place at the top. Earth's next move came not from force, but policy. The Galactic Council received a joint communique, signed by Earth and 12 Outer Rim species. A new bloc, formed overnight. Technological sharing, mutual defense, economic exchange. All of them worlds once rejected by the Council. All of them now rallying under a banner Earth had never explicitly raised, protection through parity. In private channels, several elder races panicked. Earth had done what few civilizations ever managed. They had shifted the balance of power not with violence, but with strategy. They offered shelter, innovation, and most dangerously, choice. Every outcast species suddenly had a door open, and behind that door stood a human, offering a hand instead of a weapon. Kieran remained the face of that quiet revolution. His reputation transformed in weeks. Council diplomats no longer addressed him as ambassador. Behind closed doors, they called him the Sentinel, the one who watched, remembered, and never forgot. The Crawl tried once more to reframe the narrative, publishing selective segments of the incident to paint it as a misunderstanding. Within hours, Earth's AI distributed the full footage, including encrypted chatter recorded inside the Council's own chamber. The message was clear. Earth not only knew, it had always known. The Council was forced to issue an unprecedented formal apology. First time in 2 galactic cycles. Delivered directly to Kieran, who accepted it with a single phrase, acknowledged. He didn't thank them. He didn't offer forgiveness. He moved on. In the following months, human influence expanded in every direction. Not through invasion, through invitation. Earth's envoys arrived at frontier worlds bearing solutions to famine, disease, and conflict. Every offer was paired with one sentence. We remember who was there when we had nothing. The species that had schemed to destroy Earth's rise now scrambled to align with it. Not out of respect, but survival. A predator that doesn't bite still has teeth. And Earth had shown it could bite clean through a galactic superstructure without lifting a weapon. Kieran returned to Earth eventually. No ceremony, no parades. He walked through the spaceport unnoticed, blending into the crowd. But in the Council's memory banks, in the darkest corners of paranoid minds, his name was etched into protocol. No envoy was to be approached without layers of fail-safes. No human diplomat would ever be underestimated again. And Earth, the once young species dismissed as primitive, now stood as the balance between chaos and order. Not because they demanded it, but because they had earned it. Quietly, efficiently, without begging for permission. No empire feared the loudest voice anymore. They feared the one who spoke last.